As well, and Syria leads our bulletin with the US edging closer to an attack, with President Obama this morning confirming that he is considering launching a unilateral military strike on Syria without the support of Britain. Nine's Peter Stefanovic joins us now from Syrian neighbour Lebanon. Pete, very strong words this morning from the US President and his Secretary of State.
Yeah, and I think the US President basically confirmed more or less that an attack will take place, although he hasn't given a specific time frame for that. Now, this is all based on new evidence that the US government published today. According to various streams of intelligence, it believes that the Assad regime had been planning this chemical attack for at least 3 days leading up to August the 21st, that the rockets were launched from government-controlled areas and they landed in areas that were controlled by the rebels. And the US also went on to confirm a quite staggering death toll that's much higher than we were led to believe. The US says at least 1,400 people were killed in the attack, including at least 400 children. Now, this is the US President Barack Obama talking only a short time ago about what possible military attack tactics he may employ.
We're not considering any open-ended commitment. We're not considering any boots-on-the-ground approach. What we will do is consider options that meet the narrow concern around chemical weapons, understanding that there's not going to be a solely military solution to the underlying conflict and tragedy that's taking place in Syria.
Now, those UN weapons inspectors have completed their work and they will leave Damascus tomorrow and start preparing their report. But the US Secretary of State says they don't really need to see that report. They've got their own evidence and they are working to their own timetable at the moment. Meanwhile, over in Syria, the President Assad has said all of that evidence is wrong and it has threatened that it will respond to force with force. OK,
Pete, we'll check in with you again shortly as well. Back home now, and just a week until the federal election, Kevin Rudd is this morning facing more dire opinion polls, with Labor facing a wipeout in several key marginal seats. Nine's Jane Azzopardi is travelling with the PM. She joins us now. Jane, just how bad are these polls?
Well, Deb, it seems like another day, another bad opinion poll for Kevin Rudd, and this one, surveying a number of Labor marginal seats, is not good news for the Prime Minister. It's a news poll in The Australian. They've looked at seats in Victoria and New South Wales. 3 Labor seats in Victoria, Latrobe, Deakin and Corangamite. On a two-party preferred basis, Labor is well behind, 47 to 53. There's similar numbers in Labor strongholds on the New South Wales coast, from Page, centred around the northern rivers, through to the central coast, a Sydney seat and Eden Monero on the south coast. All of them are showing a two-party preferred vote of 47 to 53. It's even worse in Western Sydney, a traditional Labor stronghold. 5 Labor seats polled there, and the government is well behind, 43 to 57. And in all of these places, Tony Abbott is the preferred Prime Minister. The Coalition only needs 6 new seats. They only need to pick up 6 seats next Saturday to win government. This poll suggests they could get as many as 20, which makes it all the more puzzling that Kevin Rudd today is here in Darwin. There are only 2 seats up for grabs here. He seemed very under pressure in his press conference in Perth yesterday, very defensive on that claim of a $10 billion hole in the Coalition's costings. But he is heading to Brisbane this afternoon for the Labor campaign launch tomorrow. He'll be hoping that that's a bit of a circuit breaker. He's reminding everyone about that 1993 election when Paul Keating, everyone thought he'd lost it and he came from behind and won it in the last week of the campaign. But it's very hard to see any parallels between that campaign 20 years ago and this one, Deb.
Yeah, he's still confident. We'll leave it there, Jane. Thank you. Meanwhile, Tony Abbott will be heading to northern Queensland today for the first time in the election campaign, expected to meet voters in Townsville later this morning. It comes as the Coalition confirmed that it won't release its costings until just hours before the election and following the media blackout. It means that Labor won't be able to dispute the figures before voters go to the polls. 2 men have risked their own lives to save a 49-year-old man who was brutally bashed in Sydney's southwest this morning. It's understood he was set upon by 2 people on a platform at Revesby train station just before 3 a.m. The 2 rushed in to help, managing to restrain one of the alleged offenders until police arrived. The victim was rushed to Liverpool Hospital and is this morning in a serious condition. The alleged offender is in police custody. Still in Sydney, and a man has been charged after allegedly glassing a woman at a bar overnight. Police say the 27-year-old was drinking at the inner city Foresters Hotel when she became involved in a heated argument with the man. It's alleged he then threw a glass at her face. She suffered deep cuts and was taken to hospital. A 25-year-old will face court next month. The Duchess of Cambridge has made her first official appearance since the birth of Prince George. First-time dad, Prince William, joining her to wow the crowd.
A double act once again. This was supposed to have been a solo engagement for the Duke, but Kate, it seems, at the last minute, fancied a break from baby duties, which apparently left Prince George in the safe hands of Grandma, Carol Middleton. There was at least an update from Mum Kate.
Yeah, really well. Thank you so much for really kind. He's the sweetest parent. For now. Hello.
It is just 5 weeks since the new parents introduced their son and future heir to the world. And Kate wasn't due back on duty until mid-September. This event may have been about who's fastest in the Anglesey Ultra Marathon, but local mums seemed more interested in the speed of Kate's return to her pre-pregnancy figure.
I was actually quite impressed with her bottom, which looks pretty good after giving birth a matter of weeks ago. I mean, she just looks stunning and she's naturally beautiful.
He's sleeping at the moment. Hopefully it will be like that for a little bit longer. Hi.
This then is chapter over for William and Kate. Their Anglesey experience is now at an end. Their next stop is yet to be announced, but somewhere no doubt close to doting grandparents.
Father's Day appeal. Tomorrow is Father's Day and it's also the first day of spring. So let's take a look at what's happening with the weather for the last day, the final day of winter. I am pretty excited about that. And the East Coast, look, it feels more like summer today. Cairns, partly cloudy and 28. Townsville, 28 as well. Brisbane, partly cloudy and 29 degrees. The Gold Coast, you can expect a top of 26. You may get a shower. Sydney, partly cloudy and a top of 25. Canberra, morning fog, then that should burn off. Mostly sunny at a top of 20. Melbourne, a beautiful sunny 23 degrees today. Hobart, mostly sunny as well and 20. Moving over to South Australia, and Adelaide can expect sunny conditions today with a top of 24 degrees. Perth, a few showers, becoming windy. They're getting a taste of winter, a top of 22. Alice Springs, mostly sunny and a hot 35 degrees. And Darwin, a possible early shower and 33 today.
Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
It takes guts to drop out like you did.
Ashton Kutcher plays the central character in the biopic which tells the incredible story of the Apple founder and visionary Steve Jobs.
Steve?
Wow. It's a fascinating yarn watching the genesis of Apple in his parents' garage.
Is this everything?
Nobody understood the concept of coming home to an actual computer that you would type on, and Jobs could see what it would become.
Through the trials and tribulations culminating in Jobs actually getting fired from his own company.
Steve will no longer be involved in his company.
I don't think until I really started researching this role and the film, I didn't really have a full appreciation of who he was. You know, a lot of times you hear about, like, you know, Steve Jobs didn't invent the internet. You know, he didn't invent the graphic user interface, or like he didn't invent the phone. But what he did was he took all these things that were being created and put them together and then made them accessible to the mass. I think, you know, the biggest thing that was probably the toughest thing that really relived was losing the very thing you created. And only when you've lost something that's that precious to you can you know what that feels like.
The main problem with this film is that we don't actually like the character, and certainly don't warm to him.
We each do our part? Really? And why do I suddenly feel like your part is expendable? You're done.
What are you gonna fire me?
No! I already fired you!
Look, he was obviously a complex, controversial and polarising person, and despite Ashton Kutcher's measured performance, there is plenty to admire, but not much to find appealing at the core of Steve Jobs. It's simply called Jobs, 2.5 stars.
Why people buy an Apple? Why do they buy an Apple, not the competitor? Because it's got bravado. It's social status. No, you know what? It's even more than that. It's social currency. We've raised the bar. And if we want to stay there, we got to risk everything.